enter into a workplace, the same right someone who's already vaccinated has a right to not him being in contact with someone who's on it, and he carries that in his life. But poor guy, he got himself vaccinated so that he has a chance against this possibility of COVID-19. Mr. Speaker, our statistics in our country is even worse. Thankfully or not thankfully to the fact that we have never invested in the medical care of our country for so long, and we are building stadiums on our sticks and pipes in our country, consuming millions of kina.
Point of order.
Before we misunderstood, on the side of the House, we too are very serious about this pandemic and its effect on our nation. Well, Mr. Prime Minister is referring to statistics, and there's a requirement under the Pandemic Act for reporting, proper reporting on statistics from the sources that he's referring to. It's created by that legislation. But I think the most important point for all of us is the government's position, policy position, and the question put is that in respect to the government's policy position, if it's not changed, two legislations have been identified which should be brought to this parliament, because it's by law that we regulate our nation and agencies of the government. We do not leave it to them to decide. That's why this parliament exists.
Honourable Member, I think the Prime Minister is still setting the background of the question and will answer, so thank you for raising that concern, but I'll ask the Prime Minister to continue.
Relevant ministers will forward to this House in due course. But coming back to it, our statistics are very, very scary. We, in 2019, or in fact in 2020, when COVID-19 came into our country, we took stock of our intensive care units nationwide. We only had 200 beds intensive care units nationwide. At the time, advice was 5% of every person contracted COVID-19 will be an ICU case. 5%. So if you do a mathematics, if 5% of 100,000 people with COVID-19, that's easily for us 5,000 needing ICU. We don't have that 5,000 beds. So what is the response? What is the alternate we have for our country? Thankfully, our rate of COVID expansion due to our hard interventions was able to stop COVID-19, and I also thank God for ensuring that we were safe. We was awaiting vaccinations or medicine as cure to come into the cell through the due process. And the learned member asked about this vaccine. The 3 vaccines we approved to be part of distribution in our country or to be used are part of 7 vaccines already approved by WHO. And me like giving clear our country. WHO, you know, one blah leak organization, one blah man taga box solo, blah Bill Gates solo, blah James Marabeta solo, blah President Trump or President Biden, no that. The entire world United Nations family are in WHO. China na vaccine blogan Sinopharm and Sino oga triple vaccines blogan la proven finis. America ga triple vaccine la proven finis. England na India AstraZeneca vaccine we make se la proven finis. Of more than 200, or I beg your pardon, 313 vaccines that were proposed to be approved, 7 already approved, are now being used globally. Today, Mr. Speaker, as I speak, over 3 billion inoculations have taken place. 1 billion in China, 1 billion in India, rest of the world another billion, including 250 million Americans vaccinated, for goodness sake. They got access to medical data more than all of us put together. More than you and me, the Honourable Member for Rabaul. 50 million Americans got vaccinated, 16 million Australians got vaccinated, they're moving towards 20 million, 800,000 Fijians got vaccinated. For us, 342,995 of our citizens and residents in our country have been inoculated. So, Mr. Speaker, me give him sorry through me. I apologize sincerely for putting the background because he got plenty misconfusion stuff like that. One man he run him some agenda or kill him all man or 666 Iran or vaccine not safe. Of course, vaccine 100% effective. But in the midst of our defense against COVID-19, what are the other alternates we have in place? Most of these vaccines are not 100% in terms of the efficacy. It's not 100%. But at 70%, 80%, the AstraZeneca I got has a 75, 76% hit. It's better than no assistance at all. And I might be exposed to COVID-19. So vaccines we come back now, the question, good leader making. Me clear long issues long all man on the ground, and our government from day one have always maintained. Mibla no got right long force him one man marry like vaccine. You yet. Life lo you got choice. You like sim vaccine or you less like sim vaccine. Am I right? Like lo you. But come lo issue the workplace where we making plenty questions and me sympathize to mass long all lig man, lig Mary only work where work will possibly may be affected because only looks in right information and all less looks in vaccine. Issue the workplace in Milson. I take COVID-19 out of the picture, Mr. Speaker. Suppose you know COVID-19, but you walk one blood, now you get him one blood sick, also TB. But you go to work on what? Workplace, or you malo past them house. You malo past them house, you're right, you come back to work. So you take away from step back from COVID-19 and you see this one blood sick. The workplace has every right to ensure there's a workplace safety. Before me walk on top of heights gas. Before me go walk on my checking past them helmet is stop or no got. How much checking for some safety process stop or no got? Issue of workplace safety now. And now talk confusion, vaccine, plenty come inside now. Talk government policy blue one. Policy blue remain. No job, no job. I mean policy blue. Vaccination and optional all man marry yet. But at the workplace, because it's like issue long, some blood you must get some vaccine because all workman. Now the work marry so workplace work under it long employer. Workplace safety requirements. Me play harem all plus clear. Na controller, na national control center issue finish instruction go along over the workplace that no can apply strict no job policy no got. Now put him testing facilities lo place lo work. Past time basic testing that's all, but now put him all strong blood testing facility or some you can swipe him nose. Now you swipe him, kiss him blood, check him. Because you must keep him this workplace safe too. This is a place and work, now country and function or business and function. So we've now gone down at a level, lower level below that issue of workplace safety, and the controller has issued instruction about 2 weeks ago to all employers throughout our country. You now have testing at your workplace. So testing at the workplace for employees as well as clients of those organizations. So we try to have a workplace that is safe from unnecessary COVID-19 transmission, transfer, and COVID-19 spread in our country that will eventually lead to about 5% of us being terminal and fatal in ICU. And God forbid, death if those who are very weak in as far as immunity is concerned, you may less longer losing life too. So, Mr. Speaker, plenty talk. Part of our awareness, miracle man very clear. No God on hidden agenda is that. Like issue of workplace safety, belong all line workers and security, cleaner, public servant, all company workman. Me play no stop task. Me play go out finish long tailoring, testing requirement of workplace, so that to the best of our ability. And this testing too, it will not be 100% safe. Because you see COVID-19 today, and not have show up yet until 7-8 days down the line. But just to ensure that we have a little bit of flexibility to listen to our people who said, look, we don't want to be vaccinated, all right, let's try to test you and maintain you at work. If you're sick, you're off work. So these are being tailored to ensure we respect some of the rights of our people who do not want to be vaccinated. But I want to encourage our citizens, mixing vaccine penis. Most of us here kissing vaccine penis. People are leader, people are not diet. Vaccine is an option. Suppose you less kissing vaccine. No one kissing marasin too. You less kissing vaccine. No one kissing marasin too, Mr. Speaker. You ask him, doctor, talk to me past them. Factory blood Islam marasin where? You like give me long. Okay. Doctor, give me sutasol, give me marasin tasol, because you trust him, doctor, qualified, it has come through the system, one system, the WHO system. We are approving vaccine, approving marasin tasol. So, me throw myself talk to me thinking, and Mr. Speaker, me taking plenty time finish, me like also kiss him some time, ask him if Parliament can look at tomorrow. There's a petition, or voice of voiceless, People's Power Movement, or some NGOs, let me step outside, or give him some petition. Tomorrow or Thursday, Parliament will formally make him responsible. This petition, more people with me only feel that they have some issues. We understand that people have right to express, and most of them did so at the expense of their own health anyway, with COVID-19 around. There's almost 20 to 30% prevalence in our country from reports that I am getting. We'll make those reports, respond to them tomorrow, up tomorrow. But for Begum Toktoblo, Leader Blimi, we have given a considered view in terms of going down at the workplace to ensure that the workplace nuclear passing protocols are tailored to try to give respect to the rights, but at the same time maintain workplace by doing testing at different workplaces, especially the major workplaces. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and my sincere apologies for speaking very long.
Honourable members, our question time has lapsed. Sorry, I can't entertain your supplementary as our question time have already lapsed. I've made a ruling that I will not take the supplementary. Thank you, Honourable Member. Leader of Government Business. Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I ask leave of Parliament to move a motion without notice.
Is the leave granted? Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, I move that as much as the standing orders be suspended as would prevent the Minister for Transport and Infrastructure presenting a ministerial statement.
The question is that those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against say no. Ayes have it. Minister for Transport.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I'm honored to be standing here before you and this Parliament and esteemed colleagues to make this statement as Minister for Transport and Infrastructure. I will provide an overview and background, outline the government's aspirations with some comment on the strategy setting and alignment to the NTDP 3, and provide some comment on the status of projects that our ministry was entrusted with for implementation by our government. Mr. Speaker, it is my profound pleasure to be reporting on the development of the transport sector. In terms of the policy outline, the regulatory and institutional reform, if they were any in the review period and reporting to the status of projects that the agency within my portfolio were entrusted with by this government. Mr. Speaker, following the change of government on the 30th of May 2019, we as a government set about to make a situation analysis to provide a perspective of the state of play in the policies and strategies that were set within the various sectors of the PNG economy. This was done with a view to making the necessary adjustment in the policies and strategies that were operating and to foster greater cohesion. The Marape government came in during a period when the COVID-19 pandemic was rearing its ugly head in PNG, and as it was doing elsewhere around the world. As a direct result, PNG was forced to adopt measures that were being applied in the rest of the world, which saw reductions in the movement of people and exercise social distancing, which affected the operation of public institutions, companies, including the movement of people and travel generally. Mr. Deputy Speaker, as a responsible government, we committed huge amount of our scarce resource in attempts to contain the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic in our country. These efforts were augmented by support from our donor partners and friends, and we are, of course, very grateful for the generous assistance. The COVID-19 pandemic has continued to affect the lives and business during the review period. Notably, business conditions in PNG has mirrored global economic experiences, where economic activities continue to pull back as governments worldwide began to respond by restricting movement of people or restricting social contact through strategies of social distancing. This by necessity meant that companies were either forced to reduce staff numbers or in certain instances shut up shops. Mr. Deputy Speaker, obviously PNG will witness the improvement in the major industrial countries feed through the PNG economy, but it would not be immediate, but lagged as industrial demand for PNG exports would be gradual, consistent with the development abroad. While there are some reported improvements in economic activity over the last 6 months or so, much of the intervening period since the change of government, the COVID-19 pandemic has resulted in worldwide pullback in economic activities. Mr. Deputy Speaker, in its June 2021 Global Economic Prospects, the World Bank reports that a year and a half since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, the global economy was poised to stage its robust post-recession recovery in 80 years in 2021. But their bound is expected to be uneven across countries as major economies look set to register strong growth even as many developing economies lag. The report says that global growth is expected to accelerate to 5.6% this year, largely on the strength of major economies such as the US and China. While growth for almost every region of the world has been revised upward in 2021, many continue to grapple with COVID-19 and what is likely to be a long shadow. Mr. Deputy Speaker, despite this year's pickup, the level of global GDP in 2021 is expected to be 3.2% below pre-pandemic projections, and per capita GDP among many emerging markets and developing economies is anticipated to remain below pre-COVID-19 peak for an extended period. As pandemic continues to flare, it will shape the path of economic global economic activity. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the Almighty God has blessed PNG with an abundance of natural resources, both hard minerals of fossil, oil and gas, the rich flora and fauna, diverse culture, and faith in our God, which I believe has provided our people with a natural resilience to live off that God-given land. PNG is a small open economy, which means that we are affected by international development, and therefore the vagaries of international markets for export especially, but also our imports of much needed supplies for consumption and as inputs to our manufacturing industries, where value adding is done on a lot of our consumers and industrial goods. The above then impacts on the development plans, especially our budget, where the levels of social services that were engaged to deliver over the review period would have been affected, as the levels of revenues anticipated would not have materialized. This has the potential to put off balance any economic development plans, including budget plans for delivering social services and investment for economic recovery. Mr. Deputy Speaker, as the three agencies that come directly under the purview of the Minister for Transport and Infrastructure, the Department of Transport, NMSA, and RTA. For clarity, the Department of Transport is responsible for sector policy, setting including the sectoral budget plans. That is the coordination of policy, regulation, monitoring and planning of investments in the three modes of transport, and ensuring that the transportation network and systems are maintained and delivered to a standard that supports and encourages economic growth. NMSA is the port state agency responsible for regulatory activities such as maritime safety, shipping and shipping registry in the marine sector, while RTA is set to improve the land transport regulatory responsibility relating to road traffic, safety activities, vehicles and driver licensing. Mr. Deputy Speaker, although we have set up these institutions and bodies and mandated them with responsibilities for delivering on certain priorities of government, this will depend on the resources that are made available at their disposal. This is not unique to this government, but has been the case for previous governments too. But for the Marape government, the challenges have been compounded by the COVID-19 phenomenon. The theme of the 2021 budget, which was handed down by Honorable Ian Staki as treasurer in our government on Tuesday, 17 November 2020, was consolidation for growth, which looks to consolidate on gains made and progress towards taking back PNG. The treasurer stated that the Marape government would find opportunities in the midst of crisis by working hard on a responsible multi-part strategy to set our economy growing again through 1. Broad-based inclusive growth by focusing on agriculture, fisheries and tourism sectors. 2. International engagement through labor mobility and capital markets reforms. And 3. Relooking the resource sector by reshaping it for a fairer return. Mr. Deputy Speaker, there is consensus view that the effects of the coronavirus will continue to impact life generally and business in PNG for a long while yet. This is the reason why the Prime Minister is really in support for increased resources to be committed to address the impacts of COVID-19 pandemic and the resultant impact on the life of individuals and communities. The recent UNDP study, Socio-Economic Impact Assessment of COVID-19 PNG, reports that PNG economy shrunk by 3.5% against what was forecasted in the first half of 2020. The most affected areas were aviation, tourism, shipping, and informal entrepreneurial sector, while firms lost 53% in productive gains. To be sure, growth remains subdued, but the government is trying its level best under the circumstances to alleviate these challenging issues. Number 3, the strategic approach and alignment to MTDP 3. Mr. Deputy Speaker, it is important to state again that the Marape government's desire to take back PNG implies on inclusive transport infrastructure, where rural communities need to be connected with some form of transportation so that they can meaningfully participate in economic activities and development efforts. The second medium-term transport plan that were developed provides for strategic needs such as missing links, construction of rural airstrips, jetties, as well as reintroduction of National Shipping Service Program, NSSP, and redevelopment of national airports and seaports. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the transport sector's vision is to provide a safe, secure, reliable, well-integrated and sustainable transport system for the country, guided by the sector's overarching strategy called the National Transport Strategy, which was passed by Parliament in 2013. The NTS is a 30-year government of PNG policy framework, which is operational through a 5-year rolling medium-term transport plan and provides short-term implementation plans. The MTTP is a 5-year implementation plan for transport investment program on transport infrastructure and policy and legislative programs for the government. The MTTP 1 2014 to 2018 was unsuccessfully implemented as it faced a lot of major challenges affecting the delivery of the plan. Some of these notable challenges included: 1, unsolidated project funding not consistent with the plan, lack of ownership by key stakeholders, and 3, capacity for delivery. Mr. Deputy Speaker, since the first MTTP expired in 2018, Department of Transport led the preparation of the successor plan, MTTP2, that was from 2019 to 2022, in consultation with stakeholders and development partners, and was approved by government on the 10th of December 2019 under NEC decision number NG 161-2019. The MTTP2 will provide the implementation plan for transport priorities of the government, aligned with the Medium-Term Development Plan 3. Taking into account the experience of past plans, the sector wants to ensure that current plan delivers the key priorities set by the government under the PNG Vision 2050 and MTTP 3. Number 4 is a table of SNC initiatives. 1, by the Department of Transport, 1.1, endorsement of National Shipping Service. NECDC number 2102/2019 approved a plan in principle and directed Department of Transport to deliver policy framework of delivery to involve private sector through PPP. NECDC number 375/2020 dated 25th November 2020 approved the NSSP delivery framework funding of 250 million over 5 years, with the first 2 vessels for Thalassia and North Bougainville districts. So co-funded by the national government of 5 million kina each district. Procurement of vessels is in progress with NPC. Discussions are in progress with two other vessels from the 2021 capital budget. 1.2, Jomat passage, mandatory pilotage and seafarers training. NECDC number 210 for 2020 approved for mandatory pilotage along Jomat passage. NECDC number 268 2020 approved support to the Medang Maritime College and alignment to APEC Seafarers Excellence Network. 1.3, implementation of jetties program in the inland waterways and coastal communities. Number 2, National Maritime Safety Authority. 2.1, endorsement of a Small Craft Act and establishment of provincial boards and registries. 13 out of the 15 maritime provinces have established Small Craft Act boards. And awareness undertaken in 8 provinces with safety at sea messages to have continued to be sent through print and electronic media. Continued engagement with provincial small craft officials to development of amendments to this act in consultation with provincial small craft boards. I made a mention of in my previous statement for NMSA. Number 3, Road Traffic Authority. 3.1, Land Transport Regulation Achievements. Introduction of RTA's driver licensing and vehicle registration system, upgrade of National Roads Accidents database and systems, nationwide road safety education awareness campaigns, review of management and enforcement of traffic rules and prosecution under RTA's legislation, operation and regulation of weighbridge inlay to control overloads and improper loading of freight and goods, and lastly, regulate vehicle standards and compliance by conducting offshore and onshore infrastructure. Mr. Deputy Speaker, conclusion. The above provides some glimpse of what the transport sector is doing in terms of providing necessary links and connections to our people to move and interact. As stated elsewhere, funding is a challenge, but we will continue to strive to provide assistance and develop the connection required. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the Connect PNG initiative is really an integrated strategic transport plan that covers all 3 modes, as the road connections provide linkages to the other modes of transport: maritime, ports and jetties for water and for ports and jetties for water transport connections, and airstrips and airports for air travel connections. We are considering extension for the Medang Gulf link with a Morobe to Central link, which will connect the food bowls of Central Province to the capital city of Port Moresby to be augmented by the transshipment of vegetables from the highlands to the ports of Lae on the northern seaboard and through Wububu in Gulf Province, which will end up in the southern seabed. With transport being a conduit for economic development and social delivery services, we will, with budget support, strive to maintain a fully functional transport system. This will ensure that our development efforts and effort to take back PNG are not hampered by an ineffective transport system. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker and honorable members, for giving me the floor to deliver this ministerial statement as Minister for Transport. And I now commend it to this honorable House.
The Honorable Minister for Justice.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I move that Parliament take note of the ministerial statement by the Minister of Transport and Infrastructure, and that debate on the statement be adjourned to a subsequent sitting.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. Ayes have it. Minister for Justice.
So, Deputy Speaker, I now move that Parliament be adjourned to tomorrow, Thursday, 17th November 2021 at 10 o'clock a.m. Wednesday.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. Ayes have it. Honorable members, I now adjourn Parliament to tomorrow, 10 a.m.